What a roller coaster this
Ah,
week has been, dude. Like free agency storm just brewing up across the NFL, and I'm here for every single minute of it. It's been awesome.
it has, man. I don't remember last year being like this. I remember last year being like kind of elevated, but a lot of big names have been picked up. Obviously, big names still on the board, but a lot of
Oh
big
yeah.
names getting cut. It's going to be pretty exciting. There's a lot of traffic as far as Chiefs fans out there. The Chiefs Kingdom is out there throwing out conspiracy theories on the next wide receiver one here in Kansas City. So I know our group text has been on fire from about 4 in the morning till 9 at night every day. So it's been fun, man. It's fun for fans to be able to experience football like this outside of the regular season and the postseason for sure. So yeah, it's been
I
fun,
mean, it
man.
gives us something to hold on to in the off season. These are like depressing times. When after the Super Bowl ends, it's like March is, we get free agency, but that's like a 3 or 4 day period, and then we gotta hold ourselves off until the draft. So, breaking all this stuff down as much as possible. That's really what our life's gonna be these next couple of weeks until we get to the draft in Detroit. So that's gonna be a lot of fun too. But man, we got some sad months as football fans coming up as June, July, August hits. I'm gonna live in this as much as possible.
Hey,
So
look, on top of that, man, like season ticket members, we got to take advantage of some of that stuff, that some of the opportunities the Chiefs give out there for season ticket members. That's something we haven't done very well in the past. So we should take a look at some of the events we can do here in the next couple months and spice things up a little bit.
yeah, I mean I definitely haven't gone out to like the schedule release party they do or anything like that, but not opposed to going and giving it a try. Heck, I mean we're paying so much money for the ticket anyway, might as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man.
But Chiefs haven't been quiet, dude. Which has been awesome, and most of what we've been doing is pulling in our own talent, right? And there's still a lot of guys out there from our team last year.
Yeah,
So far we've lost Nick Allegretti. He I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but he obviously filled in great for the Super Bowl. He's never going to
two of
start
them.
over Joe Tooney or Trey Smith. Okay,
No,
so he's getting paid some starter type money out there in DC. So I'm happy for him that he's getting this opportunity. But unfortunately, it's just not a need for a starting caliber kind of guy.
right.
Um, you know, definitely became a hero.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of got a little bit of the MVS story to him, where he came in the biggest times and took care of business when it needed to when it needed to happen. So, looking at it from that aspect, you can't help but appreciate what he came in and did for the Chiefs fans. I think we're going to jump into all the signings here for the Chiefs so far this offseason, but and it has been exciting and they've been busy, but I think the big conversation going on is again, where's the wide receiver? Throughout the whole season we were talking about, man, this has to be addressed, we got to figure this out. And as we've seen over the week, where guys are just getting picked off left and right, and we're like, where are we at with this? Veach, what's the game plan here? Who are we going to sign to be that guy? So I mean, as it pans out now, I don't believe there's a number one guy really out. I mean, you could Mike Williams is a big threat. Keenan Allen's that guy as well. But I don't see us going and spending that money. But it's kind of driving the conversation with Chiefs Kingdom is where's the drive for the wide receiver, or what's the wait really? Is that the conversation? What's the big ticket item we're waiting for? And I know somebody mentioned it today in the group text was Keenan Allen, waiting to see what happens with Keenan Allen. And that's gonna be the moment for Chiefs fans where either it's draft day and we're like, holy shit, we gotta draft somebody because we didn't get anybody off season, or once we sign somebody, it's gonna be like, all right, now we've turned up the volume a little bit. Now we can kind of look around the rest of the team and try to address some of those areas.
Here's the thing about the Chargers situation and Keenan Allen. Mike Williams is cut. right?
Yep.
Khalil Mack restructured, Joey Bosa restructured. They're under the cap threshold. They have no reason to get rid of Keenan Allen any longer at this point. They've made their moves to get to where they need to be. They're compliant with the top 51 salaries to be under that cap. And they have enough cap space to maybe make a couple other signings. They just brought in Hayden Hurst today, another tight end, as Gerald Everett departed that team. But the rest of their cap is likely going to go to the draft, where they actually hold a pretty decently high draft pick. So, with how dense the wide receiver market is, pairing another wide receiver with Keenan Allen for his last couple of years in LA, I think that's what they're going to do. Now, if Chiefs fans are holding out hope for for a Keenan Allen signing, I think you can kind of throw those in the wastebasket. I don't foresee that happening, but I totally agree with what you're coming from with the number one guys already being picked up. Like the top free agent on the market, or at least we expected it to be, Mike Evans, Michael Pittman. Those guys never even saw free agency because they got
Right.
extensions. So now we're running into a time frame on Monday where it's Calvin Ridley, where it's Gabe Davis, and the contracts that have been handed out to these guys. If the Chiefs had dished out a contract like what we've seen, me as a fan, I'd be kind of pissed. I'd be kind of
Boom.
upset with
Yep.
what we're doing, with what these contracts are doing. 3 years, $39 million for Gabe Davis. I mean, outside of a 4 touchdown performance in a divisional game, I don't think I've seen anything that would
That
make
they
me
lost.
happy about that contract that the Jaguars gave him. And same with the Titans coming out of left field and signing Calvin Ridley to a 29-year-old Calvin Ridley to a 4-year, $92 million deal, $50 million guaranteed for the guy. It seems like every year with the Titans, they come out with some kind of heavy hitter wide receiver news. It's Calvin Ridley signing, it's DeAndre Hopkins signing, trading
Yeah.
AJ Brown, it's signing Julio Jones, and none of these moves have paid off. So the fact that the Titans are signing Calvin Ridley to this kind of money, it tells me that the Chiefs are making the correct decision in the way they're navigating the wide receiver market. And a trade is still not off the table for these guys because they're holding on to an asset that a lot of teams have inquired about. And now that the Chiefs have freed up this cap space, right? Mahomes restructured. We've got about 15, 16 million. We have a little more leverage in a lot of these conversations where it's not like you have to offload him so that you can make more signings or have cap to make your draft picks and sign those guys.
Yeah.
We're in a better position where we can maybe have those conversations. And as bare as the cabinet is for wide receiver and free agency, the fact that the draft is so deep, I would not be mad if we sign one of those guys that's still available and then draft somebody with our first round pick. I mean,
Agreed.
there's any combination of those moves that can happen over the next couple weeks. But
Yeah.
wide receiver definitely is still a huge need for this team and a big question mark that fans are wanting answered. I know you and I are included in that.
Yeah, I will. I will. I do have a question on that though. How much do you think the L'Jarius Sneed situation plays into that? Because as we've talked about throughout the offseason so far, the conversation has been, or the belief has been from us that the Chiefs are looking to trade L'Jarius Sneed. We don't necessarily think that they're going to hold on to that $19 million hit with L'Jarius Sneed. They're going to look to trade him. Do you think they're trying to find the right fit and the right deal for L'Jarius Sneed before they go make that move? If that's the case, I think we're 100 yards behind everybody else because, like we just both of us just said, all these guys are flying off the board, and where we're kind of sitting around. And if that's the case, we're waiting for a deal. We might not see that deal, or that guy might not be left that we want to go pick up, and we're kind of going to be left with a situation where maybe we got a lot of cap space left over, and maybe that's how we address left tackle, or we just signed Wharton back on the defensive tackle on the D line here, so that kind of addresses some of that concern. But how much do you think L'Jarius Sneed's situation goes into us signing a wide receiver?
No, I think that's a good point to bring up, right? L'Jarius Sneed obviously is a huge question mark that's lingering on our roster to see what are we going to do with him. Is it going to be a long-term thing? Are we going to trade him? If you would have asked me before Mahomes restructured his cap situation, I would have said it's all hinging on L'Jarius Sneed,
Right.
on what we do with him. But at this point, we have flexibility financially, and there's still other moves that can be made to increase that flexibility, whether it be extending L'Jarius Sneed or restructuring Joe Tooney, extending Justin Reed to clear up some more cap space since he has about $10 million in flexibility that we can tap into. Those are all things that can happen aside from Sneed. So I don't know that a trade would have to include him to happen either. If we were to trade for a marquee wide receiver, there's no guarantee that the team trading us that wide receiver would require Sneed to be a part of the deal. And if that was the case, then, we probably would have done business with the Steelers when they traded Deontay Johnson to the
Yeah.
Carolina Panthers and got a corner in return. So, the Steelers and their GM, they put the kibosh on that. They're not trading him in conference, which, whatever. Your call on that, I guess. But I truly don't think L'Jarius is holding up the Chiefs from signing a wide receiver. I think the market is holding up the Chiefs from signing a wide receiver more than anything.
Yeah.
Because of the amount of money that's coming out for these contracts, they're going to wait it out. They're going to wait it out. Let some of these other teams pay top dollar for these wide receivers that are maybe not even 1A or 1B type of guys. Some of these guys are number 2 receivers that are getting paid the top dollar deals. So,
Yeah.
and we see that a lot of times. Sometimes it works out for teams. Christian Kirk, we saw him as a wide receiver too. He got paid this giant contract a couple years ago, and I think he's been worth every penny. But you see it in other situations where it just doesn't pan out, i.e., Kenny Galladay when he gets signed by the
Whew.
Giants. So there's all those things that can come up um, in free agency with these contracts that are tough to negotiate. And you can even look at us internally, right? MVS, we signed to a 3-year, $39 million deal. Luckily for us, we structured it in a way to get out year 3. But I don't think he ever lived up to that potential, at least not in the regular season, although he stepped up to the plate and knocked it out of the park in a lot of those postseason moments.
Yeah.
We never saw that in the regular season. And, that I think that's something the Chiefs are maybe trying to avoid a little bit and really trying to analyze this market. Up to this point, we've been linked to Tyler Boyd and
Yeah.
we've been linked to Mike Williams, all of these reports coming from the Athletic.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where, we as fans are impatient. It just we want to see something. We want that instant gratification. We see all these other teams bringing in top tier talent, shelling out these contracts, putting in extensions, making trades, and that's fun. That stuff is fun to watch your team do. And
It
we're
is
just not,
fun.
we're making the quiet signings. We're taking care of our own. We're getting Chris Jones signed. We're getting Tranquil
Yep.
signed. And we're
Yep.
bringing in some other guys that hit free agency that we need to have back in the fold. Wharton, James Winchester, he's going to get his 1-year deal
Yeah,
knocked
dude.
out. But there's some other guys that are still kind of hanging out there from the Chiefs roster. I think we could come in and grab. Sorry about the low blow there, Bryce, on the Galladay contract. But there's still some other guys we can grab from our own stable of players um, that are free agents. So there's a lot of time left. Like these moves just became official yesterday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So there's a lot of moves that can still be made moving throughout free agency. And, for fans, it's hard to do, but we got to be patient.
It is hard, and especially after you see how things have progressed so far, throughout the just this week, right? And so you want your team to be right there in the mix and making the big moves, but looking at the longevity of what the Chiefs are trying to do, obviously there is a sense of urgency with Kansas City right now for the 3P, right? There is
Oh,
a
yeah.
we have a very unique opportunity and we need to take advantage of this right now, right? So I think that's part of the conversation for the Chiefs is or for the fans really in Kansas City is that momentum is kind of rubbing off on the Chiefs, and it's like, hey man, we gotta go and get all these deals done. So I did see a theoretical today, and It was L'Jarius Sneed to Washington for Terry McLaurin, and I think we received a fifth and they received a fourth. What are your thoughts on that?
Hmm. That's an interesting scenario. I'm not a fan of the player for player trade, to tell you the truth. I know getting obviously Terry McLaurin back, a guy who's had multiple 1,000-yard receiving seasons with like you and me at quarterback at times. So I mean, he's definitely a great wide receiver, a young wide receiver, in the grand scheme of things. I think he's around 27 years old, which ironically is the same age as L'Jarius Sneed. So, from a draft capital perspective, if you're looking at what the team invested to get those two players, McLaurin being a third round pick, L'Jarius Sneed being a fourth round pick, if I'm not mistaken, maybe he was a fourth or
Yeah,
fifth,
I
one
want
of
to
those
say
two.
fifth.
If you're looking at it from the investment perspective, then the Chiefs are definitely getting a better return and acquiring an additional fifth while sending out that fourth round pick and getting Terry McLaurin. So I feel like if I saw that trade, I would not be upset if we executed that trade, but I'd also be curious, was there a scenario in which we could have acquired Terry McLaurin without giving up a piece like L'Jarius Sneed on the defensive side of the ball? Because with Terry McLaurin's contract, I haven't taken a look at it, but because of how much space we have currently available, I feel like if there were to be a trade that was going to be made, we would see some sort of restructure that would happen beforehand so that we could acquire that money, assuming Snead is not part of that trade.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hypothetical trade aside, like those are signs that fans can look forward to tip you off that a deal might be coming, right? We saw this restructure with Patrick Mahomes, $21.6 million comes off the books, and we were over the cap, so we needed some of that. But now we have this cushion of about 15 million for next year, and everyone's waiting on what's going to happen, what's going to happen. We end up trading Snead for draft capital. That 15 million turns into 33 million really quick and allows us to maybe execute another trade immediately after that could be totally separate from acquiring a player for Snead directly. It could be we get our second round pick, we get our fourth round pick, and then maybe we package a couple of other picks for a guy like Terry McLaurin. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? To come in and bring him in. So it might not even be a direct trade that we see. And, maybe we make that trade before the draft, and then draft night comes around. We have all this capital, playing with some poker chips and start making deals. So
Yep. Yep.
you just never know what's going to happen between now and when the draft comes up. What is it, April 26th or something along those lines?
I think so.
From
Yeah.
now until then, like all kinds of things are going to happen, and it's going to be just fun to speculate on it until it actually comes to fruition.
Absolutely. Yep. So a couple other departures. You mentioned Nick Allegretti there, coming in, playing two huge games, two Super Bowls for us, as not being a starter. But a couple other guys, Tommy Townsend went to the Texans, signed a 2-year deal for 6 mil, and then my man Willie Gay Jr. went down to New Orleans,
Nala,
and he signed a 1-year deal for 5 mil. And when that came out in the group text, man, I was kind of shocked that
dude.
that we couldn't shell that out and keep Willie around for at least another year. Whether I'm okay with a 2-year deal, bringing Willie in for another 2 years.
Right, he's a young guy.
Been a huge part of the defense. One of the best, rover kind of a linebacker in the league. He plays the what's the word I'm looking for there, Dan? The spy. He plays the spy incredibly well.
Oh yeah, man spy, yeah.
And man, I thought he was going to be, looking at the Tranquil deal, Drew Tranquil, 3 years, 19 mil. I thought he was going to be more in that range. Maybe not quite that. Maybe sitting at like, yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know really. Maybe sitting at like 6, 7, 7.5. But 5 mil just seems like, man, that just seems doable for the Chiefs right now. And
Right.
Maybe they're going to go with the solid three linebacker look, with Leo Chenal and Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquil. And I'm okay with that. There was a lot of time throughout the season where Drew Tranquil wasn't getting playing time, and we were kind of all
Hmm.
questioning that outside of when Nick Bolton was hurt. But now we're going to go with the solid three front. So Willie Gay on his way out. If there's one of those guys, I will say, or actually, you can't even pick one of those guys really because they were also freaking monumental to what we did throughout the last couple of years. So a couple of tough ones to see, but excited to see those guys move on and continue the career on. And
Yeah.
Chiefs have made some good moves as well. And you mentioned a couple of those, but a couple more. Deion Bush, safety, and then Irv Smith out of Cincinnati, which was I didn't see that move coming. That was an early one, early on in the week. Irv Smith
Yeah.
Jr. coming out of Cincinnati, signing him. I think for like three million. Does that sound right?
I thought it was barely over a million, maybe 1.3.
Maybe 1.3. Maybe that's where I'm getting my three from there. Then
I
that'll be interesting to
can look
see. I
it
think
up.
he's going to fill that Blake Bell role. I don't see Blake Bell definitely not coming back now at this point. But um,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
he's probably gone.
yep.
Yeah, that's I mean, just to touch on Willie Gay too, I was surprised as well. You kind of alluded to that. $3 million is the only like that's the salary cap hit. The rest of that 5 million is coming in incentives. So, he goes to New Orleans on that kind of a deal. And I think what that tells me more than anything, maybe it is they're changing some scheme back there. They're gonna run, Chenal, Tranquil and Bolton primarily, but I think that tells me the confidence that they have in Chenal to take on that role and be that spy because he's an athletic freak. Like
Yep.
54 was all over the place. Um, I mean, you
Yeah.
saw him in the Super Bowl block that extra point,
He
right?
flat
He
out got
put some
better this
pressure
year.
on some quarterbacks on some blitzes. Spagnolo had him kind of disguised in some of those sets. So I feel like if anything, it tells me that Chenal is going to get more of a role, and then we're probably going to draft somebody kind of backfill that linebacker room instead of signing but somebody. Maybe
Yep.
we bring in like a couple special team linebackers like Cochran or uh, Harris, one of those two guys, bring them back. But I think I'm excited for Chenal with the fact that Willie Gay is going to be leaving. I think Chenal's gonna have himself a really nice season
Yep.
um, coming back at it. Irv Smith he was a he was like a top tier pick coming out of college. I think he was drafted maybe a little bit higher than what he should have been coming out when the Vikings drafted him. He's had some injury concerns, but he's an athletic guy. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying he's going to come in and be this heir apparent to Travis Kelsey, but he's going to be a great complement with Kelsey Gray and Irv Smith, one of those guys that we can get open. Who knows? Maybe he becomes what was his name? Demetrius Harris in the end zone. He was like
Yeah.
good for like 3 or 4 high point touchdowns a year for like three or
Yeah.
4 years straight. Like if we
Yeah.
can get a Demetrius Harris kind of role out of him where he's just our red zone guy and he's high pointing that ball or maybe beating some guys off the line of scrimmage quick on a little flat route, like I would be happy with that. Just an
Yeah.
opportunity for us to get some more play in the red zone.
Yeah. With the talent that we have in the tight end room now, adding Irv Smith, I feel like we're going to see the red zone offense may shift to a three tight end set. And
Yeah,
Andy's already spoke about how he likes the two tight end set, and so I don't think there's going to be anything changing anybody's mind about going to a three tight end set. I think that's very feasible to see. And
yeah,
that's gonna open up a whole new playbook for the Chiefs if that's the case. They go to a three tight end set, and then watch out when that's successful in the red zone. Then we transition that into four down territory, and
oh yeah,
once really we don't need to go for it. If we're past the 50 or past the 45, maybe 40, because Bucker's leg. But other than
yeah,
that, I mean, we might have some opportunities where you see Andy going for fourth down more often with an offense like that. But
yeah,
um, Dan, I think we transition here. Talk about the rest of the league a little bit, specifically AFC West and the AFC in general on some big ticket moves that
yeah.
the league
I
has
had a
made.
question for you on that.
Okay, let's break it open, brother.
I want to throw this at you because I think it's going to be fun to kind of talk about for these last 5 minutes we got here. Um, the AFC, there's been a lot of big signings, but a lot of movement, right? There's a couple of teams that I'm eyeballing as teams that maybe are on the same tier as the Chiefs with some of these signings, or maybe made the biggest splash. But just
Yeah.
looking through the AFC, including the division, do you think there's any team that would be maybe enhance their ability to be a threat to the Chiefs, or maybe improve their stock the most? Like, what are you seeing here just on these signings?
Yeah, I think there's 2 teams I'll say that have leapfrog other teams, and then there's a 3rd team I'll say kind of an honorable mention where they have improved from where they were last year. First team has got to be the Ravens with Derrick Henry. Adding
Mm.
him to that backfield, and we talked about it earlier this week. But adding Derrick Henry to an offense that's going to be or that is already successful, in an offense that doesn't have to rely on Derrick Henry. So we're going to see his load carry go from 30 touches a game down to maybe 22, whereas that longevity of Derrick Henry's season is going to extend, and he can be that guy that we saw 3 years ago. Every single play he touches the ball. That's what
Yeah.
I'm worried about with the Ravens. Secondly, I'm going Texans. They have made a lot of moves having Joe Mixon. That offense is going to be lethal if they can come out and get the ball rolling early, get the development coming around from the quarterback, and get the group in tight, then I think the Texans are going to be freaking lethal. I see them being a top 3 team in the AFC next year as it sits on paper right now. My honorable mention here, it's got to be the Steelers, and part of that goes into how
Mm.
Russell Wilson fits into the team. So obviously they got him on like one something $1 million because the Broncos are going to be paying that salary. But signing isn't that awesome?
I love
Signing
it.
guys like Patrick Queen, that's huge on the defensive side of the ball. Out of Pitts or out of Baltimore, to see a guy go from Baltimore to Pittsburgh is not very. You don't see that very frequently. But I think the Steelers got a little bit better, and the Steelers are an organization where the ball, once they get the ball, they snowball fast, and whether that's downhill or uphill, they momentum is huge in Pittsburgh. So
Oh yeah.
I think they have an opportunity here where they can get a good, solid football team going and continue to improve this offseason and in the draft. Now, which Russell Wilson are we going to see? Obviously, that's a big question. Nobody knows. Is Russ going to cook or is he going to ride? Because if he's riding, he's going to ride him into the ground. But if he's cooking, I mean,
I'm not
Russ is
getting on
one of
that ride.
the yeah. If he's cooking, he's one of the best in the league, man. You can't doubt Russ when he's playing good ball. But outside of that, I think everybody else has been somewhat mediocre. I will say one thing, and I'll say, and it's not been just this week in free agency, it's been the offseason as a whole, that Buffalo has regressed. If there's a number, it's a big one. And it's been, if I'm a Bills fan right now, I'm not feeling very confident about what the football team's done. They haven't made a bunch of moves. Obviously, they just signed Curtis Samuel, but he is more or less, I don't know if that's an upgrade to Gabe Davis. Is he
I
just
think it
kind of
is.
backfilling that role? Um, yeah, I don't. I'm not sure how he's going to fit into the team, but Curtis Samuel's a stud. The Bills have taken a step back. I don't see them winning the division next year. I think they're going to be. It's going to be with Josh Allen on your team. It's hard to say you're not going to be in the playoffs, right? So, but they almost missed it this year and then snuck in and grabbed the 2 seed. But I think the Bills took a step back, and it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, this is early speculation here on what's going to happen next year. But I think the Bills got a tough road ahead of them.
No, I mean I can agree. More talent left than came in, for sure. That's the case. And if anyone's gonna get the most out of Curtis Samuel, I think Josh Allen facilitating him that ball. Curtis Samuel's never really had a quarterback like Josh Allen in his career. He's been with
Yep,
Carolina. He's been in Washington.
good
He
point.
was buried on the depth chart in Washington. Not even buried. He was just amongst a ton of options, and Terry McLaurin's the only one who ate in Washington. So, I mean, there was a lot of that going on in his career. I think his contract's really nice. I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth with the Ravens and the Texans. The Texans made so many impactful signings this offseason so far. Danielle Hunter is huge. The Joe Mixon trade, basically for a defensive tackle. I mean, that's a great trade that they made to bring in more talent in that backfield with Damian Pierce. Dalton Schultz coming back is big for CJ Stroud. He trusted him. And they still got Tank Dell coming back from injury and Nico Collins and draft capital from that Deshaun Watson trade to make more impacts on that team. So the Texans, in my mind, I think are in position to have the biggest offseason out of any team, let alone make the biggest jump towards where the Chiefs are at. The Bills, I'm not ready to say they won't make the playoffs or they won't win the division. I think as much
But
talent that left the Bills, I think just as much left the Dolphins in a lot of ways.
yeah,
Um, there's a lot of their players that are moving around. Christian Wilkins is a huge loss for the Dolphins, right? Not
yes,
having him in the middle is going to be a big loss and a big gain for the Raiders. So AFC is going to look a lot different, but I think one thing is for certain, Chiefs are going to be back on top, baby. I'm feeling good about that.
man, I'm feeling great about it so far, and I like you've said earlier, man, it's just getting started, and I think we have a lot of opportunity left here where we can jump on some different stuff and plug some guys in, and really we have a lot of opportunity to sign some guys that are still hanging out there that were on the team last year. So it'll be interesting to see how we continue forward and make some moves here. But Dan, let's just take a look at, top 3 guys you see available that fit with the Chiefs to sign us off here.
Yeah, I'll just throw my top three out real quick. I mean, obviously, position in need is wide receiver. Honestly, I like Marquise Brown the best out of the wide receivers that are available. I've been seeing stuff about McCole Hardman comparisons. I'm not buying into that. I mean, the Marquise Brown's putting up numbers with
Where you been
primarily
seeing
run
that at?
heavy team. Um, do what?
Where you been seeing that comparison at?
I saw some tweet about it. I think it was from Mark Borichter actually. And then I've heard some stuff on the radio today driving around in Overland Park that I was like, really? McCole Hardman? Like that's not even a close comparison to me.
Yeah, I was
Um,
saying the same stuff.
but I mean, Marquise Brown, that's who I like the most at wide receiver. I think he would be a great fit for us. Just to supplement the backfield. Maybe Cam Akers taking a flyer on him at running back. I think he has a little more tools when it comes to catching passes, which is more of what we need as opposed to like an every down rusher like a J.K. Dobbins or Ezekiel Elliott type. Um, and then finally, you got to look at left tackle. I'm with everything we did on defense, I'm pretty comfortable on defense. Like if we were to come in and grab, Jamal Adams to be that kind of Swiss Army knife kind of guy on a team friendly deal for 1 year, I wouldn't be upset about something like that. But I don't think it's a huge need for us. So I'm looking more at left tackle because that's clearly still a gap because Donovan Smith is a free agent. Tyron Smith, I was not in love with initially with his age. Same with David Bakhtiari, injury history there with both those guys, age questions. But on a 1 year deal, maybe just slightly above what mid-tier market at left tackle would be, I think that could be a strong signing too. And maybe that's why the Chiefs have that 15 million waiting around.
Well said, brother. All right, Chiefs fans. It's off season's hot and heavy here, so make sure you stick along with the Fastest 40. We're gonna do some fun stuff throughout the next month or two. Obviously, we got the draft coming up here in about 6 weeks, and then about 2 weeks after that, we got the schedule release. So, things are not going to slow down. Make sure you're hot on the news, checking out what the Chiefs got going on, and stick along with the Fastest 40. Damn, what do you got for us?
Nothing, baby. See y'all next week.